and a very warm welcome back to you. I'm Rachel and you're watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney. This is the Stocks in Action show. Let us now have a look at the ASX200 and the ASX listed stocks that are trending today. On Tuesday, the benchmark index closed the session down by 0.27% to 7,142.6. After two consecutive days of selling, today Australian shares opened higher ahead of the country's first quarter economic growth data, with strong commodity prices expected to lift local mining and energy stocks. The S&P ASX 200 gained 46.6 points or 0.65% to 7,189.2. The top performing stocks in the index so far are SANTOS. Their shares are up 4.85%, and FORTESCUE Metals up 4.16%. Over the last 5 days, the index has gained 1.36% and is currently 0.2% off its 52-week high. 6 of 11 sectors are higher, along with the S&P ASX 200 index. Energy is the best performing sector, gaining 2.38% and 3.48% for the past 5 days. Now, let us just quickly glance through some major market movements globally. US stock markets closed flat on Tuesday following a lackluster session as investors took cues from the rising international oil prices that could potentially aggravate the inflation rate. The US stocks pared gains after manufacturing data revealed expansion amid surging commodity prices and shortages of materials. Crude oil prices traded higher and the global equity markets hit a record high as investors rode concerns of rising inflation. During the day, the indices touched levels close to an all-time high as investors cheered signs of an improving economy ahead of a week packed with major data releases. However, by closing, all three major indices were trading off from larger gains notched earlier in the session. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones rose 0.16% to 34,584.08, while the S&P 500 lost 0.03% to 4,202.79. The NASDAQ Composite Index dropped 0.06% to 13,736.48. The 30-year Treasury bond yields were up 0.69% to 2.287, while the 10-year bond yields increased 0.83% to 1.606. As traders awaited clues on the Fed's direction, the dollar index fell 0.012%, while the yield on the US 10-year government debt increased to 1.6113%. However, during the early session, the dollar edged higher against a basket of peer currencies after US manufacturing data revealed a stronger than expected pickup in activity. On Tuesday, the Australian dollar pared early gains after the country's central bank stuck to its dovish script on policy, despite upbeat economic data pointing to surprisingly strong growth. The Aussie dollar was up 0.28% to 77.46 cents, having edged further away from last week's low of 76.77 cents. In the cryptocurrency space, the volatility is reverting back to normal. Bitcoin traded 2.59% lower at $36,311 on Tuesday, while its peers Ethereum and Dogecoin were down at 4.75% and up 4.02% respectively. Concerned about global inflation drove gold up by almost 8% last month to close above $1,900 an ounce comfortably. On Tuesday, gold slipped below a near 5-month price peak hit earlier during the session as robust US manufacturing data and higher Treasury yields dented its appeal. Spot gold traded 0.3% lower at $1,902.05 an ounce at 1:41 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The US gold futures closed a little unchanged at $1,905. Now, before I share some more latest market updates, it's time for a very short break.
Property by Kalkine. Looking for a dream home? Well, that may sound easy, but it isn't. And from looking for a property that is the right fit for you in terms of cost and other factors, to zeroing down on the right mortgage plan, there are various aspects to consider. And for the latest slowdown in the property market, tune in on Kalkine TV with me, Sage. I will give the latest updates on the property market as well as real estate stocks to help you make the right decision. Keep watching Property with Kalkine.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Rachel and you're watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney. This is the Stocks in Action show. Now, before we have a look at some major news from the ASX listed companies, let's take some updates from the commodity markets. The iron ore price continued the rally for the third straight day as China's benchmark iron ore futures surged more than 7%, boosted by reports that steel hub Tangshan plans to ease the requirement for production cuts at its mills. The most active iron ore futures contract on the Dalian Commodity Exchange for September delivery surged 7.3% to 1,170 yuan per tonne. Copper traded in a choppy session as lower physical demand in China negated supply concerns and upbeat manufacturing activity in major economies. Benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange fell 0.2% to $10,252 a tonne. That was by 16 minutes past 6 Greenwich Mean Time, after trading higher earlier in the session. Moving on to some important updates in the crude oil space now. Crude oil prices settled higher on Tuesday, with Brent crude futures hitting above $71 and trading at its highest level since March 2021. The increased price has been supported by growing expectations for an increase in fuel demand during the summer driving season in the US as OPEC agreed to boost output. Brent crude oil futures for August delivery traded at $70.62 per barrel. That was up 0.03%, while WTI crude oil futures for July delivery traded 0.41% up at $68 a barrel. That's of the 2nd of June at 7 minutes past 10 Australian Eastern Standard Time. The US gasoline demand rose 9.6% last Sunday, in line with the Memorial Day weekend, compared to the average demand of the previous 4 Sundays. The prices were also buoyed by robust Chinese data depicting that nation's factory activity grew at the fastest rate in May. Adding to that, OPEC Plus also decided to gradually increase the supply in their meeting on Tuesday. Meanwhile, in the US, President Joe Biden's administration plans to suspend all the oil and gas leases of the Alaska Wildlife Refuge that were allotted during the final days of Trump's administration. And on that good note, let's have a look at some major news from the ASX listed companies. Alto Metals shared SA results from ongoing major Aussie drilling program restarted in February at its 100% owned 900-kilometre Sandstone Gold Project. This project covers the majority of the Sandstone Greenstone Belt in Western Australia. The new assays relate to 4-metre composite results for 24 holes of 5,441 metres of step-out drilling at the Lord's Corridor, targeting Lord Henry and the Orion lode extensions, and wide space exploration drilling at the new Central Zone target. Now, before I share some more news from ASX listed companies, it's time for a very short break.
Crypto talk by Kalkine. The crypto market has been red hot given the Bitcoin rally since the past year. And now the most famous cryptocurrency has got competitors, Dogecoin and Ethereum. If the crypto market excites you, tune in with me, Sage, to know the latest developments about the existing digital currencies and the new ones that are joining the race. I'll help you understand the opportunities and the risks the crypto market has in store for you. For all the digital currency related developments, continue watching Crypto Talk by Kalkine.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Rachel. You're watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney. This is the Stocks in Action show. Let's have a look at some major news from ASX listed companies now. Wiser announced on the 2nd of June that it has completed an institutional placement raising $50 million via the issuance of 200 million new ordinary shares. The issue price for the placement shares was 25 cents per share. The funds generated will be utilised to fund loan book growth, technology investment and feature enhancement, also expanding the total addressable market by exploring new markets and growth opportunities. In addition to this, Wiser will offer all existing eligible shareholders the chance to participate in the capital raise under a share purchase plan. Moving on now, Race Oncology announced on Wednesday it's appointed the contract research organisation Parexel International to boost an open-label phase 2 clinical trial in patients with relapsed acute myeloid leukemia. The trial will be led by Principal Investigator Associate Professor Anoop Anjeti, Director of Haematology at the Calvary Mater Newcastle and John Hunter Hospitals. Extramedullary acute myeloid leukemia occurs when leukemia spreads from the bone marrow and forms solid tumours in tissues such as the skin, breast, kidney, brain or other organs. Moving on to the next news now. Life sciences company Invion has entered into a co-development agreement and exclusive distribution and license agreement with RMW Cho Group to co-develop PhotoSoft technology for the treatment of atherosclerosis and other infectious diseases. Under the deal, Invion will gain exclusive distribution rights to the PhotoSoft technology in Asia Pacific for these indications. RMW Cho Health Technology will be providing funding of approximately $4.5 million through the share placement at an issue price of 1.4 cents per share. This represents a 2.1% discount to the 5-day volume weighted average price as at the most recent trading day of Invion shares. The ASX release also informed that RMW and its affiliates will continue funding Invion's research and development activities for cancers under the existing services agreement. The last traded share price of the stock was 2 cents per share. Now, before I share some more news from ASX listed companies, it's time for a short break.
At Kalkine TV, our team of experts, anchors and specialists gear up to provide you with trending and breakthrough business stories, insights and market updates. The BNPL space did enormously well in 2020 and the trend may repeat in 2021. If you do not wish to miss the high-level insights, do watch out for Kalkine TV. Brace yourself as we bring to you the plethora of different sectoral and market intelligence as well as analysis on a daily basis. Kalkine TV, keep watching.
And welcome back. You're watching the Stocks in Action show. Let's have a look at some news from ASX listed companies now. Rumble Resources announced developments from the current RC program for zinc-lead discovery at the Irahidi project in Western Australia. They found multiple extensional faults in the mineralisation at the Chinook prospect and the entire Irahidi project. The extension faults are inferred to be feeder structures associated with the widespread flat to shallow dipping, higher grade zinc-lead zones typical of large ZX type deposits. ZX deposits account for 25% of production and 50% of zinc-lead reserves globally. The next drilling stage is a 30,000 metre drill program to test the potential higher grade zinc-lead corridors associated with inferred extension faults. Moving on now, SRG Global has secured 2 specialist facades contracts in infrastructure construction and a structures contract in defence, totalling $50 million. Contracts shall run for 20 to 24 months. Facades project works include designing, supplying and installing specialist engineered curtain wall facades in Melbourne and Adelaide. It also contains structures work at the HMAS Stirling facility at Garden Island in Western Australia. These contracts highlight the diverse service offering of SRG Global and its ability to operate across industry sectors with key repeat clients. Moving on now, engine and fuel company Orbital Corporation delivered the first engine system to a Singapore defence company. They signed a memorandum of understanding with one of Singapore's most prominent defence companies back in March 2020. The MOU was for design, development and initial low-rate production of multi-fuel engines for unmanned aerial vehicles. The engine represents the latest innovations in UAV propulsion capabilities, providing best-in-class performance to their customer. They are now working under contract on Phase 2 and confirming requirements and conditions for Phase 3 of the programme. Okay then, that's all for now. Stay tuned with Kalkine TV for more live market updates. We'll be back very shortly with more news on the markets, economy, diverse themes and sectors. I'm Rachel, signing off for now.